So it's a long time overdue for a podcast. I have been very fucking busy, so I haven't been able to do this in a while. But I mean, I don't really have a particular point. So I mean, if anybody's watching this thinking that like I have some ultimate thing, now I'm just top of the dome. I have no clue what the fuck I'm talking about as usual. But I figured a good topic to start would be motivation and inspiration, just because that's something I think we all kind of need on a daily basis, almost like a battery. We need our charge, and then we have our days obviously where we're fine. But I think everybody kind of needs that boost once in a while, or unless you're living a life or a job where you feel like you get that from your environment or the people around you already. But I feel like a good majority of people are working jobs they don't like, doing things for people that they don't want to do. And I mean, like, maybe some of you guys watching this have figured it out and you're doing your dream job and, like, that's what you envisioned. Like, I knew a guy that, like, always knew he wanted to be a dentist. When he was a kid, he knew he wanted to be a dentist, and he grew up and became a dentist. And it's just, and when I heard that, I was like, oh wow, I've never even thought of something like that. Like, I've never personally been like, I wanted to be, I remember when I was a kid, I used to want to be a veterinarian, and I've strayed so far from that. But then I wanted to be Batman, and like, that's realistic. And then fucking, well, maybe if I have money in the future with gadgets and shit. I'll be too old at that point, doesn't matter. Fantasy world. Um, but I think the biggest thing with all this is that a lot of people are doing stuff, like I said, they don't want to do. So their daily lives, which consists of 12 hours of the day, normally give or take, unless you're working a part-time job or whatever, usually 10 hours. I don't know. Men, especially, I would not that there's anything against women. I'm not saying that. I feel like I'm turning this into a men versus women argument right now. But just in terms of, I'm sure there are plenty of women out there working 12 to 14, 16. It's not a sexist thing. I'm just saying it's more, I feel like, common for a man to have to do a blue-collar job that's physically demanded for a long period of time. Even though women can definitely do stuff like that as well. I'm not. But I just feel like that's kind of commonplace, and it's not even a man or woman thing either. I mean, there's women out there doing really shit work that a man doesn't want to fucking do. But there are women in those fields or professions, and they're there for fucking 12, 14 hours doing stuff they don't really want to fucking do because they haven't figured out their life at all either. And it's weird how in America we kind of set things up like, oh, you go to school and you learn a bunch of, a variety of things to kind of pique your interest, to figure out, like, what is it you want to do with your life. And, like, that's a really hard, weird thing to present to someone whose mind isn't even, like, properly formed. Like, what do you want to do, Bobby? That's Joe Rogan. Ah, shit. My food's going to be done. This is bullshit. I'm going to have to cut in the middle. Or I could start all over again, which I don't want to do. So, I'm going to cut here because my fucking food's done. I'm an idiot. And I didn't prepare for that. So, probably going to be like, bloop, bloop. I'm back. Stuff in my face. Maybe I'll be done. I don't know. It's magic. So I'll see you guys, and literally what will be to you. Yo, motherfuckers, what's up? I'm back. And that General Tso's chicken was awesome. Anyways, so back to my point about people working shit they don't want to do, doing things they don't like to do, all that bullshit. So I guess my biggest thing is I feel like with life, we have it all kind of set up. I mean, I'm not trying to pretend like I'm only 24 years old, so I know I don't got the world figured out. But from my short time here, I feel like even though I am not as maybe intellectually advanced as people who have been here longer, I do know, and I reference Joe Rogan all the time, but he brings up very valid points. And I believe the biggest one being, like, you know as much about the universe and what life's all about as anyone who's existed ever, at any point in history. And you will know by the time you're dead just as much as anyone's ever learned pretty much in a lifetime, regardless of whatever factual wisdom, experiential information you learned and gave back to the world that advanced culture and technology and all that shit. But regardless of that, like, the true meaning of life, like, nobody's fucking cracked that shit. And if they told you they have, I would meet them with a lot of skepticism. Especially people who are so clear, I have it figured out. But anyways, I'm straying from my point here. Well, I mean, everything kind of intermingles, but we could go on forever about anything, and I want to try to keep it kind of focused because I like to scatter everywhere. So I guess, like, the biggest thing is I feel like, or in America anyways, and I mean, this is generally, and I feel like this is an overarching spiritual maybe problem, but I'm not going to bring it to a spiritual, like, level yet. I think that like the education system, even our culture, for example, our education system is immediately woven into our culture, and our culture is defined by tradition and past or new things that are happening that we're adding to it, events, experiences, people as a whole, and how we're contributing to the overall idea of what society is. Well, I feel like the education system is set up in a way that obviously it's predominantly left brain orientated with fact learning and like regurgitate this, and you got to remember all this stuff for your test. And I'm gonna say, a large variety of the time a student is gonna learn all that shit, and then it's going to be in one ear and out the other. You know what I mean? Like, I can think back when I was in school, because it was not that long ago. Half the shit, I mean, like, I like the idea of learning. I love it. I mean, it's necessary to become a better person and grow and, like, experience reality and provide inventions and, new happenings or new services and products for people, so that way we can all be benefiting each other. But I feel like we have this cold, computer-like, calculated, logical-minded idea of how to train a person to be a person or something. Like, I'm not really sure. There's no, like, manual for life. Like, when you're born into it, there's no, like, this is what it is. And so, religion tries to fill that gap in a way, I feel like. But it's more of an operating software, I feel like. We'll go into that another podcast. But I just feel like education in total is a way to just kind of institutionalize and indoctrinate people into a certain framework of thinking, so that way it's almost Pavlovian, like, hey, raise your hand if you have to go to the bathroom. Hey, when you're at work, you better tell your boss where you're going when this happens. And like, the reason we have to do that and have all these frameworks and authority figures and thing like this literal matrix we've created for ourselves. And like, I'm not being all like, oh, we're living in the matrix, because I mean, we could be inside a simulation. I'm not against that theory at all. I mean, who fucking knows? I don't know. But the idea of like what the matrix really is definitely present in society. Like, society is a matrix. It's this system of governances and laws. And what is a law really? It's a law is like, if you think of grander laws, like gravity's a law, laws of gravity, like laws of physics and stuff like that can be tested. They happen all the time, and if this happens, this is what will happen. And so our idea of what law is really interesting, and it kind of provides the frameworks for our society and morphs us kind of like, if you imagine society as water and these pipes, which are law, it governs people down certain predetermined pathworks of what is like allowed in society, or behaviors that are accepted, social norms, all these things that we've created. And that comes from culture and things like that, or he's like me, and that's safety, because back in the day, I'm sure, tribal warfare and all that shit. So we have a lot of repressed psychological shit going on in our brains from like way back that we don't even take into account when we're walking through like a city, and then our fight or flight responses are going off, stuff that is programmed into our cells for thousands, hundreds of thousands, or I don't even know how old. People would debate how old we are, so I'm not even going to throw out guesstimates. I don't care. We're old. Or young, it's all relative. But I mean, like, we're programmed a certain way, and then society's taking this exponential kind of so with that, and population and the access to information and all these things, you're creating a large, like, as far as we know, this is the largest population that's ever been on Earth. I mean, there's plenty of theories, like, obviously, we've reached, it depends on what you want to believe, but even in the Bible, I guess, too, like, they have the flood stories. But it's like, there could have been plenty of times in our history where we were just as technologically, if not even more advanced than we are right now, but natural catastrophes happen, volcano, what if a super fucking volcano came off and caused like a nuclear winter, or ice age from like the smoke being in the sky, all the ash and shit, not to mention where that super volcano blowing off would kill fucking everybody. And then simple things like Earth's rotational field changing, waves. I mean, there's been documented, deluges, which is just, the floods that, swept over the earth, which happens, or like parts of continents just sinking right into the fucking water. I mean, I'm sure that happens too, So like, you could have like societies information and wisdom and all this collective knowledge, and then the sea just fucking, oh no, it's all mine now, and it's all down there. And like when you lose access to wisdom or knowledge, which is what a school is really, it's a way to preserve information and knowledge and pass it on to the next generation. And I feel like the schools that we have currently, I mean, I just did a big fucking circle with all that. I don't even know how I came back to public education, the universe. But I just feel like it's really there to kind of more or less indoctrinate you into, this is how you're supposed to act in society, this is what you're supposed to do. And like, I don't think that there's some big bad, like, I mean, there might be, who know, like I said, I'm in the gray with a lot of things, hence, the background. But I just there could be some secret, agenda going on and stuff. I mean, I don't doubt that. There are people who profit or private interests are involved in, subjects such as public education or investment of future, people coming out of public schools, all that type of shit. But I think society is just so chaotic and weird, and we're all just kind of like doing our own thing. I don't know if I believe that there's any like one, like the Illuminati. Like, I do believe that yes, there Bilderberg. There's tons of, I mean, I'm not disproving or saying that there is or isn't, or tying Illuminati into this public school system. But I would assume if there was a society like that of rich people who are influencing the world in decisions and politics to benefit their companies and themselves, and then that obviously in turn influences the law system, which passes, or the legal system, and Supreme Courts and all that to pass certain laws for our representatives, which filter down to the police system, who have to enforce those laws whether they're right or not, that protect companies and private individuals more than they do the people in our country. And now corporations a person somehow, but they can't be charged like a person can be charged, because like, yeah, the companies like can be at fault, but unless an individual fucking was caught with embezzlement or doing something, like the company loses money, which is a variety of individuals, but nobody's really like caught up in that. It's like a fake, I don't even know what the word is, scapegoat, as opposed to like when you're mom and pop store, you're kind of responsible, like it's you. And so I don't know, I just think America's obviously, there's a lot of private interest in a lot of things, especially when you get to a certain point of power. And by power, just whether that's financial influence of people or social influence or influence by fear, mafia, whatever. I mean, you'd be surprised how much drug dealing and things with that side of the world are directly interwoven with everyday businesses, people you see on the street and you wave to and you think but you really don't. And or even the police system, corrupt cops, good cop. I mean, it's everywhere. But I think it's really interesting that like we try to prepare our youth by like sending them through this weird maze of like learning and stuff, and they're gonna learn a variety of shit. And then we're gonna be like, all right, you have to go to college because that's the next step. Or we'll tell a good portion of them that like if you don't go to college, you're not gonna make anything of yourselves. And like I know in my school they made it like a thing that you had to apply to a college, even if you weren't going to one, you were forced to apply. Which seems pretty like, okay, well then what is that? It almost seems like like I've been doing sales for a very short time. I just quit my job there. I wasn't big on selling cars, which is what I was doing. Nothing against who I was selling for or anything like that. It's just moral, personal ethics, a lot of that. And I don't know. But in my very short stint there and learning what I learned, I feel like obviously schools are becoming a business. I mean, everything has to kind of become a business at a certain point because we've made capitalism in America all about those aspects. So, like, people need money. Like, they want money or they're going to end up on the lower shit end of the pole, and everybody wants to rise up. They don't want to fall down. So, even something like school, the money, you got to follow the money. And, like, so, like, who's benefiting from all these things? I mean, like, you see kids that come out of private schools, you see public school education. I mean, that's the biggest thing is money. I mean, like, funding. But it's like, we can fund all this war, but we can't fund schools. But, I mean, that has a whole nother debate, too. I mean, like, this debate can fracture into fucking a billion different reasons why things are the way they are. But, I mean, to really focus on the issue at large, I think it's responsible to at least acknowledge it and then try to find maybe the most pertinent reasons as to why things are the way they are, even though it's really hard in life to narrow one thing down to this is exactly what it is and why. I mean, in most cases that are simplistic, you can do that. But when you get to like overarching shit, like why is the public school doing this, or why are we at war with that, like that splinters down into fucking a ton of things. You can simplify it by saying money, or you can say this, but then you have to ask why, and you just keep asking why, and you're gonna keep splitting fucking hairs and going down new paths eventually till you get to the causation of why, and it always loops back to fucking greed, like it really does. I want what you don't have, or I don't want you to have that, or it just comes down to the human nature, which is why I feel that's also present in our public school education system and how we treat kids, even how we treat them now. But I will say, obviously, I'm being kind of one-sided and biased in the aspect of, from a teacher's point of view, one, they're making a paycheck, they're a human being. Two, they're just trying to, they might have wanted to teach, they might have had to fall into that job just because, who knows. But it's no different, really, I feel other than a police officer or anything else where you're filling a role, and you chose to fill that role, and now you have to enforce the responsibilities of that role. And sometimes they're not always so clear-cut, black and white, as you're in the right, the student's in the wrong, or you as an officer are in the right, or the civilian is in the wrong. And it gets really morally gray when you, the individual who has the title of authority over another individual, has the ability to dictate their future, their anything. And in most cases, if you're a decent human individual, you will make the right choice. But I feel even the best people, in time, can easily, you do this time, and you push the gate a little bit, and you're I'm not going to do that again, but you've already pushed it out here. So to you, out here is your new comfort zone. Sorry, for what's allowable for you. So yeah, but it's not as bad as the time I pushed it over here and went on the edge, but and that still kind of lingers in your mind that you could go there because you've been there, but you can't go any further. But it's a slippery slope because you're just allowing yourself, it's like saying I'm only going to do this one time, but you do it one time and you've opened the door to have done it, and instill that, the muscle memory, the thought patterns, all this in your brain for a repetitive time, and if not, to push it further next time to see what you can get away with. People by nature are just fucking, they love to see what they can get away with. They're curious about that. Oh, if I don't have to put in work, can I not? Or what if I did this? People are always naturally, I feel being lazy, and they're looking for the easiest fucking way out of the situation. And I feel with education, even, there's so many fucking different angles for this, but I feel predominantly what I'm trying to get at with schools is just, it's interesting how we don't have a system in place to more effectively figure out a person's role in life, because we are not looking at the individual as a human being anymore. We're looking at them as more or less this weird potential projected number thing that's going to be shot off into the world to make the rest of the world money someday. Because, hey, you're going to be a doctor, or you're going to be this. So, we have this idealized version that every single kid wants to be a doctor or fucking whatever, and they have to go to college. And, I know a shit ton of people who haven't gone to college or aren't doing that have their own businesses and are just smart and are doing their own thing, or doing a trade. I know plenty of people that decided to just do a trade and didn't do the typical 4-year path. They're making bank right now, and they're fine. Or fine, it's all relative. Everything's relative. But, it might have more bills than I have or something like that. So fine, what is fine? It's fine for me if I had that job. Not that I'd like it, but it's just the weird how we don't, the world doesn't care once it's weird. As a kid, the world cares about you. You're fucking oh yeah, the baby. And each year the world cares about you less. I can't remember what comedian said that, but it's so true in the aspect that we're always trying to prepare the youth, the potential, the future, the next generation. We're always trying to get things in place for our youth to set them up for their future. And we're that, I'm the result of a present time where they were trying to set me up, and here I am on the effect. And after a certain age, which is usually 18, they don't give a fuck. Nobody gives a fuck about you. Go to jail. Nobody cares. If you go, no one cares. they care less each year. It's just what happens. The people get more absorbed into their own life, their families, whatever. Like, it's just what it is. You know, everybody's got to live their life, and the way we've set life up, we made it so fucking hard that you have to zone in on just that and no other. But like, unless you have like a job that allows you to travel or have a ton of free time or get paid bank. I mean, if you're an entertainer, more power to you. You're doing your thing, or like a sports fucking, you know, you're on a NFL team or playing NHL hockey pro or fucking a musician, you know, like Kanye. Like, but for the rest of us, like the other fucking 90 something percent that have to work shit jobs and like work our way up or get a college education and define ourselves at such a early point in our lives, like, oh, I guess I'm just this now, and if I have any other thoughts any later on, I have to convince myself they're wrong and not the right thing, because I'm spending, and I've already spent so much money in this degree to be this, and then later on I find out when I start working that job I don't fucking like it, or it's not what I thought it would be, or any variety of things. Maybe now I like to fucking, I want to open my own business or something like that, but I didn't get a business degree, or people that have business degrees that aren't even fucking using them. Like, it's just a weird thing that we do. I feel like it's the sales process. Like, if you're selling a car, if you're selling anything, it's sales. It's like, hey, they're selling you college through public education. The idea of this futuristic place that's going to determine your place in the world. And for some people it does. Like, I'm not trying to be one-sided and biased in the aspect that I'm sour, that like life is, you know, not at all, because there are people that are like I said, that I want to be a dentist, and then that man grew up and became a dentist, and like he knew his path and he liked it, and like that was his thing. But for me, like I could never imagine that. And like for most people I know, they don't want to define themselves as like, this is who I am right off, and like they want time to figure it out. But life isn't like forgiving in that aspect. You got to pay your bills, you got to like do all these things, which is like a part of life. That's what we do. I mean, does it have to be? No. We could, as a collective humanity, try to figure things out, but haven't we been trying to do that for thousands of years? And look at the wars we have and all the shit. Like, I can barely get along with people in my own fucking like school, like when I was in high school, let alone getting along with a whole nother country or another fucking tribe back in the day, or like, it's just, so like I get that like mentality of us versus them, and there's always going to be this like other or feeling, or maybe there doesn't have to be, but we've made that. So but anyways, so I mean, I don't have a better alternative, I guess, but I feel like there should be possibilities presented at least. I mean, different, so you see kids that are like, not that I'm a super advocate of homeschooling, because I feel like you miss out on a lot of shit by doing that, but at the same time, like, there's a lot of kids who come out of that that are super fucking smart, even if at times like they might be socially awkward, or there are things that aren't complete, like how they look at it is a little weird because they never got that adjustment from others to kind of, I don't know, but I don't know, everything has its balance, because then, you know, kids from public school, you're a dumbass, like, you don't ever paid attention in school, whereas a homeschool kid, like, you better do your fucking homework, and it's like, alright, holy shit, I'm gonna learn this stuff. And so like, it's just so many different breeds of people, different ways of creating a person, and there's no right or wrong way. I'm just asserting different ideas, possibilities. But I just think it's interesting how we kind of are running things as Americans, or maybe not even running things, we're just letting shit fucking just like go. Like, there's nothing, like, we think that there's a person or a thing, or like, oh yeah, the president, like, yeah, but like, really, like, yeah, he decides, certain frameworks through which society is supposed to work through, because they get established through law and voted on and all the stuff by a very small percentage of people who are supposed to represent the rest of America, which I highly doubt. And then those things pass into law and apply to the rest of us. Shit, sometimes that we, like, I find it really fascinating when stuff gets passed into law that, like, the average person, or even most people, have no fucking clue. Like, none. They don't even know what the law's about. They have no clue that it's being voted on. They have no clue. Like, there's just weird shit that's flying in there when Lindsay Lohan's Snatch pops out, or this is happening here, or some other weird shit in entertainment's going on, so everyone's looking left instead of looking right. And then, I don't know, it's a lot of, oh, look over here, sleight of hand shit. And especially with media and television, focus on this travesty, but don't fucking think about the law we're about to pass to take away your internet rights or the privacy of your bull. Like, it just goes on. And it's like, how are people letting these things pass? Why are people voting on shit like this? And then you look at the people who are voting on the shit and all the money they're being handed by fucking corporations to enforce these things, once kickbacks, all this stuff. Who's fucking funding your political campaign? It's just follow the money. That's all I can say. And I feel like I've spoken long enough, so this is the end of this podcast. More to come soon. See ya!